With a company that's up 1,200% in the last 5 years, is it still falling into that strong buy category? In today's video, we're going to be looking at just that, what Nvidia is doing to really counteract some of the tariffs, and the reason why they still have a very long runway, and a majority of people are saying Nvidia is still a very strong buy. So I know a lot of investors have been concerned with where the chips are going to be made, where they're going to be sent. But when you think of Nvidia stock, they have taken steps to circumvent these tariffs in their entirety. Its most powerful GPU that they have, which is, I believe, the Blackwell still. This is a massive win for the country. It is going to be produced 100% in the United States. Some of the most critical products won't need to be sourced from outside of the borders, meaning it is going to be made here in the United States. And as we know, with the tariffs in place, if it's made entirely and if it's really created here in the United States, it is not going to be tariffed. Now, there are still a couple factors about the Blackwell chip that we want to talk about, because when we think of Nvidia, what is the potential for this? When we start thinking of quantum computing, when we start thinking of cloud computing, when we start thinking of these really big data centers, when you think of artificial intelligence, there are so many things that are going to be 100% reliant on the chips that Nvidia is performing and what they're producing within the United States. Now, of course, this is not something that can really flip the switch and happen tomorrow. They have to build up the places and the physical locations to actually build and develop all of these chips. Now, Nvidia has a ton of tailwind blowing right in its favor. Now, this is something that when we look at the Blackwell chips, it is currently the most powerful graphics chip, the GPU, which is going to be produced in the entirety in its United States, but it is expected to have 12 to 15 months of ramp up time. That means only a year. When you start looking bigger picture, guys, in the next year, that's not a huge runway when it comes to getting this up and running and looking at the facilities. People are realizing that these chips are the top performing chips. They are chips that everyone looks. Even when you look at some of the competition or even some of the things they need to build is Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing chip facility in Phoenix, the Foxconn facility in Houston, and they also do have another one in Dallas, with the final occurrence or the final assembly of the chips themselves happening in Nvidia's plant in Texas. So most of it is not only going to be produced in the United States, it is also going to be very local for the United States. This, while it might not be able to avoid an upcoming semiconductor tariff that they put, they're carving out the plans to move to the United States, which is going to make a big difference. Now, tariffs and really the tariff concerns are still going to be here for really a significant amount of time, until the president decides enough is enough, getting to the point where we're going to come with a settlement. And I feel like it's not far off in the horizon. When we start thinking of the last couple really weeks or even months of the tariff game, it seems like it's coming to an end where a lot of companies or a lot of countries are starting to coincide or come to concessions with what the US is wanting. Now, when we start looking at the AI growth is still occurring, even though it has taken a little bit of a backseat and companies are kind of taking a step back to figure out exactly what the tariff concerns are going to be. This could be a once in a lifetime opportunity and competitive reason to leave other companies behind because of the AI infrastructure and the requirement that they're going to have if other companies, if the competition are outsourcing or buying everything from other countries. This is why when we see capital expenditures, they are putting out $400 billion in 2024 and over $1 trillion in infrastructure by 2028. So there is a ton that is coming. Considering Nvidia has one of the largest chunks of data center, generating $115 billion from data centers over the last 12 months. That is incredible. Now we're going to have to see exactly what it looks like when it comes to foreign exports. Recently, Nvidia was forced to write off $5.5 billion in inventory, which the H2O chip, because of the export guidelines and what they weren't going to China. But we don't know, because it could happen tomorrow where there's a pause on tariffs. China and the United States come to an agreement, and then those chips, not only did they already write them off, they still do have them. They weren't destroyed, weren't removed. They have the ability to really change them. Now, the rules have changed when it comes to chips that can no longer be exported. Nvidia will eat the cost of those products during the first quarter, could hurt the profits overall sitting on the balance sheet, but it will not affect the company drastically, which is what we want to see. Now, when we start looking at the market, this is where Nvidia is getting crushed. Sell off by 5%. Now Nvidia's market cap is 2.7, and they are thinking by 2030, this is going to be the absolute largest company by market cap that we have in the United States, even passing up Apple, which I believe is still number one. But when we think of a 5% drop, and again, 5% drop in a company is not really huge, and a lot of it is just based on social media. A lot of it is based on news in the entirety, but they lost $135 billion trillion in market cap, but quickly returning. It does come back pretty quick. Now, the stock has not been cheap in a long time. However, like we said earlier, a majority of analysts say that it is still a very strong buy. Investors need to keep their eye on the future. GPUs made in the United States, expanding those data centers for AI. There is going to be companies that are going to need what Nvidia is producing for the long term. Now, when we start looking at the trading, it is 23 times the forward earning, which the broader market S&P 500 is around 20%. So looking at 23 times the forward earning for a tech company, that is not huge. That is not an absolute game changer for me, especially because we know Nvidia is producing so much of really the infrastructure as well as those data centers, and the income generated from those data centers is something that is, again, kind of crazy. This makes Nvidia a no-brainer to purchase here. Investors need to focus on what's happening on Nvidia years down the road, not really the short-term fear of the tariffs, but looking at moving the Blackwell chip production to the United States is, in my opinion, going to give them a very big competitive advantage if you're looking at the stock. Now, overall, like we said earlier, when you start looking at the last 5 years, they're up 1,282% in the last 5 years, which is kind of incredible because they're still falling into that strong buy category, which we have seen even looking at today, which we know the market was doing pretty well today. Today, they were up a couple percent. I think it was like 2 or 3%. When we start looking at the 5-day, even looking at the 1 month, we're down about 16%, which could mean Nvidia right now is sitting at a 16% discount over the last 30 days. When we start pushing back 6 months, you're at 31% down, which again makes it really a strong buy because it is 31% down. And knowing that you're getting this stock with the growth potential for the artificial intelligence space at a 31% discount, that's where I really start looking at it. Year to date, again, down around 31, but when we start looking at 1 year, they're at a 24% gain, which again, really outperforming a lot of different sectors. Even looking at the S&P 500, it is done incredibly well. Now, for me personally, most of you know if you've checked out the videos, if you watch some of the content, I do not buy individual stocks, but when I start thinking of what I'm holding within my QQQM, which is going to carry and does have that market weight cap, Nvidia is a really big holding in there because of the size. Then we double it up with our S&P 500, which is our VOO from Vanguard. That also contains that market cap weight, with Nvidia being one of the largest companies in the United States. I do hold it in two kind of different portfolios or two different ETFs that make up that 3 ETF portfolio. And then the third one, of course, is my HD, which doesn't have the tech side of it, but it really rounds out a very well-diverse 3 ETF portfolio. One to keep the market, one is the foundation, one is that super growth. When we start seeing all of this tariff really settle down, I feel like the market is going to be on fire, and it's going to happen very, very quickly, but from where we've seen the market pull back this year. So it's going to be kind of crazy. But again, guys, look at the news. It is all just news. It is all things that are very, very short-term effect. I mean, we've seen a huge plunge in the stock market over 2 days, around 18%, just because there was a mention of tariffs going in place, and then they were paused and everyone just literally rallied. We've seen the exact same when it comes to yesterday. The market was down quite a bit. Today, we've seen a total rebound from what we just seen down again yesterday, which again is kind of crazy because it's yo-yoing up and down. But every time it yo-yos down, when we're down 5, 7, 10%, that is the time when I'm dollar cost averaging into the position. Then we see the rebound today, and I'm rebounding even faster just to sideline and sit money on the sideline, waiting till we see another bounce in the market. Can't time the market, can't come out and do it absolutely perfectly, but if I can buy on the days and really buy only on the days that we're seeing the red market, when it's down, again, 5 to 10%, makes a really big difference. All right, guys, so that's going to do it for today's video. Let me know in the comments what you guys think, and as always, thank you guys for watching.